Ready? Okay, well, good morning. Well, last night was the final debate, and we are 2 weeks away from this election. And the governor and I thought this would be a good opportunity to reflect not only on the process, but really to stress the important role that Iowa plays in the upcoming election. We know that the presidential process starts in January with the Iowa caucuses, and not only was that the rise of a president, but the education of a Republican nominee happened in this very state. Iowans are fortunate in that each of the past few elections, we not only influence the beginning of the process, but Iowa also plays a valid, extremely important role at the end of the process. And this year certainly is no different. We have a clear choice between two candidates that Iowans have gotten to know very, very well in the last year. The governor and I want all Iowans to recognize the important role that Iowa plays in this election. We are one of a handful of states that have a tremendous opportunity and responsibility. And as the governor and I travel the state, I want to tell you that Iowans are energized, they are motivated, they are paying attention, they understand how important this election is, and they understand that we need somebody in the White House that shares our vision, our values, and that understand the policies that Governor Branstad has put in place the last 2 years and the difference that has made in Iowa's economy, turning this state around. And we need to elect a partner at the White House that shares those same values and will help turn this economy around and get this country growing again and providing jobs for the middle class. And now it's my honor to turn the podium over to Governor Branstad.
I share the Lieutenant Governor's sentiment. We are very fortunate to live here. We're very fortunate. We're very fortunate to live in Iowa, the heartland of America, where the process begins, but also where we are a battleground state that's going to play an important role in selecting the next leader for our country. One of the reasons I came back and ran for governor 2 years ago was a lot of Iowans came to me and said, we need your experience and leadership to get the state's financial house in order, put the focus on the things that are important, jobs and education. I'm proud of the progress we've made. The state of Iowa now is in the strongest financial position it's ever been in. We have not only balanced the budget, we have done it by stopping the bad budgeting practices of using one-time money for ongoing expenses. We are focusing on making our education system, again, truly best in America. We know that's not going to happen overnight, but we're going to tenaciously continue to work on that every year. We are also focusing on bringing good industry and business and jobs to our state and reducing the tax and regulatory burdens that are an impediment. I contrast that to what's happening in our neighboring state of Illinois, where they have continued the status quo of borrowing and spending, and where they're $4 billion behind in paying their bills. They have the most debt per capita, and they have the most unfunded public employee liability system. They have the most unfunded liabilities on their public employee pension system. So as we look to the future and we say, what kind of future leader do we want for the country? I look at Mitt Romney, who has primarily had his experience in the private sector and has been very successful in helping businesses get started and create jobs, who rescued the Winter Olympics when they were in trouble, who was governor of Massachusetts, a very liberal state where the legislature was dominated, 87% by the opposition party, and yet he was able to reach across party lines and accomplish significant things, including Massachusetts having the highest test scores in both math and reading in both 4th grade and 8th grade. And I'm particularly concerned about the debt and the deficit this country is facing. You can't continue to increase the national debt $1 trillion a year. We're now at $16 trillion. It'll be $20 trillion if we continue the status quo.
The Obama administration has no plan to address that. I think it's critically important that we have new leadership that will focus on getting the nation's financial house in order, cutting the size and cost of the federal government, and focusing on private sector jobs. We are facing a financial cliff at the end of this year. As the Bush tax cuts expire, we're going to have a massive increase not only in the income tax, but the capital gains tax and the federal estate tax. These are things that will hurt small business and farmers, which are the lifeblood of our state's economy. And that's the reason why I think it's critically important that we elect Governor Romney as the next president. I'd be glad to respond to your question.
What are your predictions for the Congress races? We've got 4 very contested Congress.
You know, we are one of the few states that has an objective system for reapportioning, and as a result, we have competitive races in all 4 of our congressional seats. And obviously, as you know, we're going from 5 to 4. So we have a couple of incumbents that are thrown together. I feel very confident that Congressman Latham will win this contest against Congressman Boswell. And the reason for that, first of all, Latham, if you look at his history, has been the best vote getter of any of Iowa's congressmen. He consistently runs very strong, and he runs ahead of the generic Republican vote. I think he carried every single county in his old district. I believe that he will not only win, but I think he will win Polk County. Early on, I said he'll carry Dallas County big enough to offset Polk County. Now I believe that he will carry Polk County, as I have in the last 3 elections. I think Congressman King has had his toughest challenge yet, but he's really stepped up to it. He's run a really good campaign. He's a very hard worker, and he represents northwest and north central Iowa, I think, very well. Obviously, you know, Nancy Pelosi and the liberals would love to get rid of Steve King. They don't like his voice in Congress. He's been a real thorn in their side. But I think the people of Iowa appreciate having somebody that fights for their interests. And he's been a strong advocate for agriculture and renewable energy and things that are really important to our state. So I think in those 2 districts, I feel very confident for both King and Latham. In eastern Iowa, I think the races will be close. You've got to say that Braley and Lopesack have the advantage, but we could see a surprise in one of those 2 districts because I think we have a couple of very strong, energetic, hardworking Republican candidates, and so I think those races are going to be close. I don't think the ones in western Iowa are going to be that close. I think that both Latham and King will win with a solid majority. I also am feeling really good about the state Senate seats. We have a lot of contested races around the state, and we have an excellent chance to win, and I think to defeat some incumbent Democratic senators as well.
Do you think that Governor Romney, if he wins Iowa, becomes president, and then on the other side, if he loses Iowa, he doesn't become president?
Well, I don't know. We're 6 electoral votes. I don't know that we can say for sure as Iowa goes, so goes the nation, but obviously both sides know how important this is. The president's going to be here Wednesday. Governor Romney's going to be here Wednesday. We're one of the key battleground states, and I think that Iowa could be the deciding factor. I'm not going to say we're absolutely the deciding factor, but obviously we're one of the critical battleground states, and that's why it's so important for Iowans to take this seriously, and why I hope that we'll have an absolute record turnout. And I think, judging from the early voting, there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of enthusiasm. I particularly see it on the Republican side. A lot of people interested in both the presidential race and also the congressional and legislative races, and I feel real good about it.
Well, Governor, obviously you want Romney to win. What do you see as his path to victory here in the state of Iowa? Obama has, what, over 60 campaign offices. I mean, he's really working on turning out the vote. What do you see as the path to victory?
Well, it's interesting because early on, Obama had a big advantage in this early voting, but that has really changed. If you look at what happened in the 2010 election, we had a similar situation. The Democrats, spent a lot of money and put a lot of effort into this early turnout, but I would always said the only polls counts is one taken on election day. We have election day that strings out for a while now, but I think that a lot of Iowans are going to turn out on election day. And I think Republicans historically have been really good to go to the polls and vote on election day in big numbers. And I think that's going to be a very important deciding factor. Plus, if you look at the undecideds, historically, undecideds break against the president. I mean, I've seen polls that show them dead even, but the president of the United States is below 50%. And when you're the incumbent and
in approval rating,
he's below in the head-to-head race. I think that the recent one I saw was at NBC and Wall Street Journal, or CBS and Wall Street Journal, had it 47-47. And again, there will be more polls. And again, I come down to it's still a poll that's taken on election day that's the one that counts.
but do you think the undecideds will be breaking for Romney?
I do. And the reason for that, I think, if you've had 4 years to see the incumbent and see his record, and you're not sold, then I think the likelihood is that you will choose the challenger who offers a different alternative. So, and that's, I think most pollsters will tell you that historically, I know the people that have worked for me in my campaigns have already told me, if you're below 50%, you're in danger as an incumbent. So you want to work real hard and try to be above 50%.
Does that prognosis apply to the King race as well?
I think it applies to all races.
So the undecideds will...
I think undecideds tend, now in the King race it's a little different because King is doing extraordinarily well in the district that he's represented. So you've got a whole lot of new territory. And it's the new territory where he's not as well known, and consequently, I think in that race, and I've told him that, he needs to work really hard in that new territory, and they have. And so initially, I think he's going to sweep his old territory, and then the new territory will probably be fairly close. But I think when you add it all together, I think he's in a very strong position because he's going to come out of the northwest Iowa, which is a heavily Republican area with big margins. I mean, I know the Lieutenant Governor and I got 88% in Sioux County in the last election. So if you come out of Sioux County with that kind of a margin, where are you going to offset that? And they vote. They really turn out. Not only the percentage, but I mean, I just remember when Bush won Iowa in 2004, he carried Sioux County by, I think it was like 12,000 to 2,000, and he lost Polk County by about 9,000. So Sioux County offset the biggest county in the state, Polk County.
Last week the unemployment numbers came out, and while the unemployment rate has ticked down, the number of people having in non-farm employment has declined as well. Are you concerned about this trend?
Well, first of all, we're the fourth lowest unemployment state in the nation. North Dakota, which has oil in addition to agriculture, is the lowest, I think followed by Nebraska and South Dakota. So we're fourth lowest. And most of the decline there was in public employment. So we have been systematically reducing the size and cost of government. At the same time, we're seeing construction tick up, and we're very hopeful that with that, and obviously we'd like to see some more certainty at the national level. A lot of businesses are sitting on the sidelines waiting to see what happens in the presidential election, deciding if they're going to invest, create jobs. But we're going to continue to work hard on that. I'm very hopeful in this next election we're going to be able to reduce commercial and industrial property taxes, as well as individual income tax. All of that, I think, would be another positive signal to help us reduce the unemployment rate and grow the Iowa economy.
Governor, to go back to your analogy about how the undecideds break, you see them breaking for the governor. Is it different at all in this case that while that could be the way historically, in this case, we have a candidate who's basically been running for 8 years. So not being a new, the new person in the race, does that make any difference?
Well, I think what you saw with the first debate is because Obama had the financial advantage up until the conventions, Obama spent a tremendous amount of money, and this is, I think, so unusual for the incumbent president. Instead of running on his record, when Ronald Reagan ran for re-election, the theme of the campaign was "Good Morning in America," and it was all about what he'd accomplished and what he wanted to build on. With Obama, it's all about how can we blame Bush, tear down Governor Romney, and blame other people. And I just think that's not leadership for the President of the United States to spend all of his time. So I think one of the reasons why we've seen a really momentum for Romney since the first debate is people have got a chance to see him side by side. They did last night. They see that he's a thoughtful man. They see that he has, I think, good ideas, and he's not a radical, dangerous person the president tries to portray him to be. And people can make their own judgment on that. And I think when the President of the United States spends all his time attacking and demeaning other people, I think that demeans him. And consequently, I think that's one of the reasons why, if you look at what happened in the Carter-Reagan race, it was close right up to the end, and Reagan ended up winning by a landslide. I don't think there's going to be any landslide election. I think it's going to be a close election, but I am encouraged about the momentum that we've seen in the last several weeks for the Romney campaign. And I think a lot of people, a lot of the undecideds are just starting to tune in now. A lot of the people the partisans have long since decided. But the undecideds that really are the ones that are going to decide this election, the independent voters, and I think it's significant that people like Ross Perot, Ross Perot ran as an independent, got 19% of the vote, and there's a lot of people that don't like either party. But they looked at somebody like Ross Perot as an independent voice, and he said, we can't continue this direction, this debt situation, and another one is Steve Wynn, he's a good friend of former Governor Bob Miller, who's my friend from Nevada, was governor of Nevada for many years. And Steve Wynn has said he's just tired of being demeaned by the President of the United States as an entrepreneur, business person who has done a lot and given back and created a lot of jobs. And he supported Obama last time, but he's supporting Romney. So I think when you see people like Ross Perot and Steve Wynn, and I think there's just a lot of people in this state that really have big hopes for Obama, but have been deeply disappointed. And Iowa has, what they say, 20-some counties. And by the way, the whole district that I used to represent, Winnebago, Kossuth, and Emmett County, they're all 3 counties that went for Bush in 2004, went for Obama in 2008. And I think those are counties to look at election night because they, along with Marshall and many others around the state of Iowa, are key counties that are going to kind of decide which way this state goes.
Governor, you talked about uncertainty. Can you talk about the uncertainty in the wind industry and the distance between you and Governor Romney?
Well, first of all, let me say I'm proud that Iowa was the first state to provide incentives for renewable energy and we have been a real leader in that. We also recognize that what the state has done has been very successful. We have, and Senator Grassley was one of the sponsors of the wind energy tax credit, but we also understand, just like the ethanol tax credit, this can't last forever. I'd like to see it extended for a period of time, but I think most importantly, we've got to build energy independence by having all of the above approach towards energy in this country. And the thing that is most disappointing is the President of the United States vetoed the pipeline that would have come from Canada and has the Keystone Pipeline and has consistently opposed additional drilling on public land and has been such an opponent of the coal industry. So I'm all for renewable energy. Nobody's been a stronger supporter of ethanol, biodiesel and wind than I have, but I also recognize we can't rely solely on that, and we need things like coal, and we need oil, and frankly, North Dakota is a great example of this, and the growth. The president's trying to take credit for the growth we've had in domestic production of oil, and yet he's been an opponent of it. The fact is, most of that has occurred on private lands in states like North Dakota.
You're meeting with your economic partnership board here in a little while. Any reason why you called that meeting? Is that just...
We do that on a regular basis. The lieutenant governor and I, try to be very hands-on involved in economic development. And this is that really public-private partnership board that was put together to really put together a strategy for diversifying the economy and bringing more business and jobs to our state. So this, we meet with them quarterly. So this is a regular quarterly meeting with that group.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.